What I wanted to talk about tonight is the concept, the experience of the Jewish people in exile of Galut, and the flip side, of course, is the redemption, Geula. What I'd like to start with is a pasuk in Amos in Perek Tes. Let me explain why. This past week was Parshas Kedoshim. Very often we find that Achrei Mos and Kedoshim go together as one. Now, when Achrei Mos is read together with Kedoshim, the Haftorah is taken from Amos Perek Tes, which starts Halo Kivnei Kushiyim Atemli, and the pasuk goes on to describe how HaKadosh Baruch Hu took the people of Israel out of Mitzrayim. However, when Kedoshim is read separately, and it has its own parsha, its own sedra, then the kriya of the Haftorah is from Sefer Yechezkel. That nevuah is a very harsh castigation against the Jewish people. It's about Toivos Yerushalayim. It means to expose those things that are repulsive about Jewish behavior at that time in Yerushalayim. And the Navi comes down very hard on the people of Israel. Now, you'll notice that we did not read the Haftorah this past Shabbat from Yechezkel HaNavi, even though technically we should have. But instead, we read from Amos, and that substituted and replaced completely the Haftorah from Yechezkel. And the question is why? Now, about 5 centuries ago, Shalom Aleichem, there was someone called the Levush Mordechai, Rabbi Azariya Berzon. And in his compendium, he actually records this minhag of reading the Haftorah from Amos, even if Kedoshim is separate from Achrei Mos, and he tirades against it. It cannot be, and it's against the minhag. We always have a rule that in such a case we should read from Yechezkel. He doesn't know how to justify the minhag of reciting the Haftorah from Amos. However, if you look in the Bach, he defends the minhag, and he says that certainly we should read from Amos when Achrei Mos and Kedoshim are joined together, when they overlap. And even that's a chiddush, because keep in mind, the Haftorah, when we have a double parsha, is usually the Haftorah of the second parsha, which would be Kedoshim, which would be Yechezkel. Nevertheless, when Achrei Mos Kedoshim coincide, we're going to read the Haftorah for Achrei Mos, which is from Amos. But he goes a step further and he says, even when Parshas Kedoshim is a separate parsha, independent of Achrei Mos, we're going to read the Haftorah of Achrei Mos from Amos. And in fact, my Rebbe Rav Soloveitchik told me that back in the day in Lita, the minhag was that even if Achrei Mos Kedoshim were two separate Shabbatot, they would read the same Haftorah from Amos twice in a row. Repeat the same Haftorah. So we asked the Rebbe why. And he took out a Gemara Megillah. The Gemara Megillah records machlokes between Chacham Rabbi Azariya about the Haftorah from Yechezkel. Rabbi Azariya was very opposed to reading that Haftorah because it reveals Toivos Yerushalayim, the negative dimensions of Yerushalayim. And Ein Darshan, we don't read publicly Toivos Yerushalayim, that which is disgusting and repulsive about Yerushalayim. Chachamim are more lenient. They said, look, it's part of the Navi. It's a very harsh nevuah, but nevertheless, it's in Yechezkel Navi, and we're going to recite it. We paskin like the Chachamim, and therefore we would be permitted to read the Haftorah from Yechezkel publicly. But my Rebbe said that because we wanted to take into consideration the sheet of Rabbi Lezer, and be choshesh that maybe we should not be reading from Yechezkel to Avos Yushalayim, therefore we avoid that Haftorah. Not only do we avoid it when Achrimos Kedoshim are together, and we're going to read the Haftorah from the first of the two parashios, meaning from Achrimos, but even when Parashas Kedoshim is separate, we're going to read the Haftorah of Amos, the Haftorah of Achrimos, even if we have to read it twice. We're going to avoid at all costs reading from Yechezkel Hanavi from Torah Vos Yerushalayim, despite the fact that Me'ikar Adin, we pass like the Chachamim, and you're allowed to read from Yechezkel Hanavi. But we're going to avoid it. We're going to be Choshesh for the sheet of Rabbi Lazar, Ein Darshan B'Torah Vos Yerushalayim. And the Rav used to mention this time and time again. Whenever somebody publicly criticized what was going on in the state of Israel because it's a secular state, he said we're not allowed to do that. We should not do that publicly. If it's constructive criticism, you have something to say, that's one thing. But just to criticize because you're not happy with what's going on, that's a violation of this minhag that reflects the sheet of Rabbi Lazar of Ein Darshan B'Torah Vos Yerushalayim. Shalom Aleichem, Dr. Feldman. How are you? Mash. Nizman. Shalom Aleichem. And then he went a step further, and he quoted the Netziv Mivalozhin. And the great Rosh Hashiva Volozhin said that the Chet HaMeraglim teaches us a new halachic principle. And that is that the Isur Lashon Hara applies not only to individuals, but even to a tzibur. To criticize and denigrate a community in Israel is a violation of Lashon Hara. Tremendous chiddush of the Netziv. Normally we would say that Lashon Hara is only between one person and another, against the Yachid. Dr. Eli, I have a seat for you. Just for old time's sake, I mean. But the Netziv says that there's an Isur Lashon Hara against the Tzibur, and we derive it from the Chet HaMeraglim. Why is the Chet HaMeraglim considered Lashon Hara? Even though they didn't speak against individuals, they spoke against Eretz Yisrael. That too constitutes Lashon Hara. I have a kasha. My question is as follows. So you don't want to read the Haftarah from Yechezkel. So you want to read the Haftarah from Amos. The Haftarah from Amos compares the Jewish people in its opening line, Perek Tes of Amos, the first pasuk, to Bnei Kushim. Cush. Cush was, of course, the descendant of Cham. And Rashi says there at the beginning of Amos that just like the Cushim were meant to do tshuva for their sins and they did not do so, Amos, with harsh musar, is castigating b'tochacha chamura Klal Yisrael for not doing tshuva. So I don't get it. You just finished telling me that you don't want to read the Haftarah in Yechezkel. Why? Because Ein Darshan B'Torah Vos Yerushalayim. You don't want to violate the Isur Lashon Hara against Yerushalayim. So what have you done? Instead, you read the Haftarah from Amos. Rashi says the Haftarah from Amos is a very harsh castigation against the Jewish people. So what have you gained? Maho ilu chachamim v'takanos. I want to read to you the Radak. The Radak, at the very beginning of Perek Tes Mi Amos, writes the following. He says, Halo kivnei kushim atem li b'nei Yisrael, kivnei kushim shehem avodim, vehem shchorim mibnei kush ben cham, vehem nimkarim la'avodim, kein ro'ui shetiyu atem avodim li, Ki mi beis avodim kanisi oschem ve'alesi oschem me'eretz Mitzrayim. Says the Radak that the analogy between the Jewish people and the Kushim is the Kushim because of the Avera, they were cursed to be Avodim. And Klal Yisrael, since you were taken out of Mitzrayim, Ki li b'nei Yisrael Avodim, you are meant to serve me, dedicated to me as Avodim, and you failed to do so. So you should have been true and loyal Avodim to your master, and you didn't do so. You didn't live up to your responsibility. Again, the Radak, like Rashi, understands that this is a harsh tochacha against Klal Yisrael. So I was very disappointed, as you can imagine. But the Rebbe wasn't around. I couldn't ask him. It's a long-distance phone call. And I was trying to figure out, what is the pshat over here? And you know who saved the day for me? The Malbim. The Malbim, in his commentary on Amos, Perek Tes HaPosuk Aleph, saves the day for me. Whole nother pshat in what it means that the Navi compares the Jewish people to the Bnei Kushi. When I was young, they used to have a phrase, I don't know if you're familiar with it, black is beautiful. Do you remember that? So listen to this. Says the Malbim, I'll read to you parts of it, it's a long, he says, Siem es sifro b'divrei tanchumin, that Amos, after 8 chapters of castigation, anyone who knows a little bit about Amos, he knows it's very harsh tochacha. Amos gives us a sort of an upbeat ending before he closes the book in the 9th chapter, last chapter of Amos, and he tells us divrei tanchumim, he consoles us. Omer, atem miyuchadim li. You, the Jewish people, are beloved. You're singular. Ki bnei kushiyim, what's the analogy to the bnei kushiyim? Shehem mitsuyadim v'nikarim tamid. Umiyuchadim lavoseim ayidei shachrus oram. I mean, he's making a statement both in terms of color and in terms of heredity, that when you meet a Kushi, you know that his father was a Kushi, right? You know, so too, he says, the analogy in the case of Klal Yisrael, Gam Atem, he says, Afal Pi, even though Yiglu, you are sent into exile, V'yisarvu bein amim acherim, you are constantly in contact, mixed, so to speak, as it were, with the nations of the world, nevertheless, Bal yisarvu imohem, the Jewish people still maintain their identity. Atem hagam shetiglu v'tisarvu bein ha'amim tamid tiyu nikarim ki atem li. You will always be distinguished as my people. Ki atem b'nei Yisrael v'chol ro'ehem, and all those who observe you, yakirem, they recognize you, ki atem b'nei kel chai, your special relationship to HaKadosh Baruch. Umevi raya, at the end of the pasuk, Amos brings a proof. Hello, as Am Yisrael Alesi Meretz Mitzrayim shehagam shehayisem b'Mitzrayim yomim rabim golim umeshubadim b'chol zos lo saravtem im hamitzrayim ve'elisi es Yisrael b'nei Yisrael mufradim v'nikarim b'shmam u'biyichusam. Says the Malbim, the Jewish people are subject to 2 centuries plus of exile, and they were together with the Mitzrayim on a constant basis, and nevertheless they remained a separate, independent, distinguished nation. They never mixed with the Mitzrayim. And of course, when I read this Malbim, I thought of all the different Chazalim that try to interpret the piece in the Haggadah. The Haggadah says, Melamed, it says, Vayu sham l'goy gadol melamed shahayu mitzuyanim sham. Mitzuyanim sham means, says Rashi, mitzuyanim nikarim. Right, the word tziyun means a marker. Right, like a tziyun kever. You don't want the Kohen to go there, so they put up a marker that says there's somebody buried there. Tziyun always means something distinguished, something that distinguishes you. The people of Israel, even in Mitzrayim, are called Mitsuyanim. What does it mean, Mitsuyanim? They're different, they're separate, they're independent. And the Mefarshim try to explain how was it that the Jewish nation, despite the subjugation, the servitude, the oppression, for 2 centuries plus, were able to maintain their separate identity, to be Mitsuyanim? Was it just, according to some Mefarshim, geographic location? The Jewish people were in Goshen. Some of the Mefarshim say that Goshen was the closest place in the map within Mitzrayim to Eretz Yisrael. The Jews wanted to be close to Eretz Canaan. Or was it more than just geographic location? Shaloshinu es shmam, v'loshinu es lashonam, v'loshinu es malbusham. But again, one could argue that all of those are cultural manifestations of a society, of a nation, to maintain its separateness. Others say Shaloshinu es malbusha means they wore tzitzis. This is before Matan Torah, so it has to be understood exactly what mitzvahs did they have before Matan Torah. And others say Shalo divru lashon hara zel zeh. It was only that one case, you remember with Moshe Rabbeinu after he killed the Mitzri. Those were the exceptions to the rule. But the Jewish people maintained a certain social sensitivity and integrity, caring one for the other. Other Mefarshim say Mitsuyanim Sham, that they were makpid on sniut, and there was no immodesty or immoral behavior in that realm of existence. And there's even one Mefarsh that I found in Tashbeitz in the Torah's Chaim Haggadah, which is the Moser Rav Kook Haggadah, who says that they continued to learn and study b'yeshiva. They had Megillos that they took into Mitzrayim that had parts of Torah and stories and legends and Mefarshim and everything that they were studying even in Mitzrayim. So it's unbelievable, says the Malbim. The fact that the Jewish people were able to maintain their separate identity even in the, shall we say, the most profound golus, the exile of Mitzrayim, for such a long period of time. That's the Divrei Tanchumin of Amos when he says, Halo atem b'nei kushiyim atem. Just like black means you're separate, you're independent, you're noticeable. So too the Jewish people, no matter where they are, no matter what society they find themselves, they're separate, they're independent, they're noticeable, they're nikarim. But my friends, the Jews have gone into many different galuyot. We've gone into exile after exile. One could say, if you've ever been to Beit HaTfutzot, you can see it. They have it mapped out on the wall in the dome. The various galuyot and the travels from one country to the other. We settle here, and then we get expelled, and we resettle here. And the challenge, I believe, of what Halo atem kibnei kushiyim atem is all about, according to the Malbim. The great challenge is, how can we enter into exile and still maintain our separate identity? In Parshas Achrei Mos, the Torah says, B'chukoseim lo telechu. And the Torah repeats itself again in Parshas Kedoshim. We have to have separate chukim. The Pasuk of Aschanon says, Mi ki amcha Yisrael, goyech b'tashem lo chukim u'mishpatim tzadikim. We have statutes. We have a moral code. We are the Am Hashem. We are able to face the challenge of being in a non-Jewish culture, of having interactions constantly with members of other religions, other faiths, other races, and yet nevertheless maintain our status. There's an amazing Medrash Rabbah at the very beginning of Sefer Shmos. It says, Eila Shmos B'nai Yisrael Haboyim Mitzrayim. So the question that I think the Medrash is, I'll present to you the 3 words of the Medrash. But I would like to first suggest that the Medrash Rabbah is bothered by the following question. In Parshas Vayigash, just 2 parshas earlier, the Torah tells you V'shivim nefesh yardu avaseinu Mitzrayim, and the Torah tells you the names of the Shivim nefashos. There's an exact duplication here at the beginning of Shvos, the same exact 70, the same names. So the Medrash says the following: Haboyim Mitzrayim Ki'ilu achshav bo. It doesn't say Shebo Mitzrayim. In Parshas Vayigash, the Torah is recording the events as they transpired. Meaning, at that time, Shivim Nefesh Yardu Mitzrayim. But here, already you fast forward, the clock is already a century or two fast forwarded, and yet the Torah uses the Lashon Hoveh as if right now, boy Mitzrayim, when they came in. Says the Medrash, Ki'ilu achshav bo. They may have been in Mitzrayim for decades, maybe even for centuries, but it was as if they just came into Mitzrayim. And often I wondered, is that a blessing or the opposite? Because we know that when Jews go into exile, they're always looked upon by the Goyim as Ki'ilu achshav bo. The Jews could be for centuries in a place, but it's Ki'ilu achshav bo. And at the face of it, that's a terrible klala. The Goyim don't let us become comfortable, become part, become integrated into a society. Ki'ilu achshav bo, that's not good. Could it be good? And the answer is yes, it could be great. It could be great because it facilitates our ability to maintain our own separate identity. The fact that they see us, like you find in Mitzrayim, that Paro says, this is a fifth column, we have to be worried about them, and so forth and so on. They look at us as aliens, as separatists. If we espouse a liberal philosophy, they claim that we're radicals. And if we espouse a somewhat conservative philosophy, we're fascists. They'll always have an accusation against us. And they don't let us integrate. That, my friends, is a klola aval sheyesh bo bracha. The bracha is that we are forced to maintain a separate identity. B'chu koseim lo telechu means that our attitude towards life is radically different than theirs. They may have statutes. If you take a look at the Bartanura in his first opening comment in Avos, says Rav Azariya Berzon that true, there are many moral books and ethical books that have been written by the Chachmei Umos Ha'olam. But he says, those are laws that asher badu milivam. It's a matter of convention. People get together, they want to create a society, they have to have some sort of system where I respect you, you respect me, otherwise there'll be anarchy. And so they create a system of law. But, says the Bartanura, what we have is a moral system that's based on a revealed law in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through His Torah, gave us absolute moral laws. And therefore, Mi Ke'amcha Yisrael, Asher Lo Chukim U'Mishpatim Tzadikim. We have righteous laws. We're dedicated to those laws. And that's what makes us a separate entity, a nation unto itself. And that, I think, my friends, is what is the essence of the challenge of Golus and hopefully of Mitzvah Hashem bringing about Ge'ula. I want to share with you a brilliant insight that I love to share of the Beis HaLevi. The Beis HaLevi is focused on Shiras Hayam that we read not long ago, Shabbos Shira, right? I mean to say on Shabbos Chol HaMoed Pesach. In the Shiras Hayam it says Oz Yashir. I want to read to you the language of the Beis HaLevi. He says the following: during the entire period of exile, lo hevinu hanhagas haborei yisbarach b'golus. It was very difficult to understand, to justify the suffering of the Jewish people of Mitzrayim. V'ha'ilem tsar mikoshi hashibu. Even Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a time. He says, Umeoz basi el paro. What happened? It only got worse. V'lo havin hanhagas hagolus. He couldn't reveal the secret of Golus. Aval achshav shenigalu. Listen to the Beis HaLevi. Now that the Ge'ula, the redemption, takes place, havinu es hagolus shehoisal litovasam. They understood now that the exile somehow was for their benefit. V'shemei hagolus Yotza Kvod Shammai. Unbelievable concept. That the exile itself is an integral part of a process that reveals the glory of Hashem. V'alizeh Amru B'nai Yisrael Achav Shira Hein al Hagolus Ve'Hein al Hageulah. Isn't that amazing? To say that Shira Hayam is a praise to Hashem, an expression of thanks, not just for the Geula, but for the Golus as well. Of course, as long as they're in the thick of Golus, there's suffering, there's oppression, it's, shall we say, tzaddik, viralo, there's no possibility of singing Shira. But now that the Geula took place, says the Beis Halev, they were able to comprehend how the Golus, together with the Geula, integrated into one whole, indivisible entity. It was one process. And therefore they could recite Shira even on the Golus. And now I want to quote to you the words of the Sfas Emes, the Ger Rebbe. And listen how similar they were. The Ger Rebbe and the Beis Halev were more or less contemporaries. Maybe the Sfas Emes was a little bit later. He says the following: Achar HaGolus the Achar HaGeula Hevinu Veheminu Lemafreya. He used a Lumdisha term, Lemafreya, retroactively. Al Kol HaGolus Shahoisa Bi'ava, that everything was given Bi'ava. V'al HaKol Amru Shira. And he goes on to explain various sections in the Shir Sayam, Omar, Oyev, Verdov, Vasikach Leishol, that these parts of the praise and Shira refer to the Golus itself, to the experience of exile of the Egyptians. But now that we've experienced the redemption, retroactively we can appreciate even the Golus. And it becomes part and parcel of one whole. And the Shira now relates not just to the Gula, but even to the Golus. The Shira, the praise of Oz Yashir, encompasses both the Golus and the Geula. I thought, according to the Beis Halevi and the Sfas Emes, perhaps we could understand what Chazal say, that Ad Shelo Bo Bnei Yisrael Layam Lo Omar Adam Shira. This was the first time that man experienced Shira. How could that be? That's not true. There are many times that we find in Jewish history, even before Shira Sayam, that Jews express thanksgiving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the unique Shira, according to this approach, is that the Shira is not just on what we think is good, omitting and excluding what we think is bad, but even that which seems to be negative, which seems to be tzaddik viralo, that too is part of good and should be integrated into our Shira. And perhaps that's what the pasuk means in Parshas Kitisa, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, "V'ra'isa sachorai u'panai lo yiro." That face to face, when you're in the thick of it, you cannot appreciate, you cannot begin to theologically justify, why should the tzaddik suffer? Why should a righteous person suffer? But only afterwards, me'achorai v'ra'isa sachorai, then you'll get the wisdom. You'll have the chachma, the ability to understand and appreciate how even what we considered Ra is really good. And Ra and Tov are integrated together to form one whole. So let's just summarize our conclusion. Golus and Geula may appear to us, to the human mind, as antithetical. But in truth, Kel emunah vein avel, everything is good. And even the Golus is part of the Geula. On an individual level, that has a tremendous, profound message for each and every one of us. You know, we experience things and we say, why? Why does this happen? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why am I going through this period of time? And somehow, we have to have the emunah that in the broader picture of faith, even that which seems on the surface to be not good is also good. I want to talk to you a little bit about a Gemara in Masechta Brachos. The Gemara in Brachos on Daf Lamed Beis interprets the pasuk V'di Zahav. You remember that at the beginning of Sefer Dvarim, Moshe Rabbeinu gives sort of like an overview of all that transpired to the Jewish people during the 40 years in the wilderness. And one of the things he alludes to is the chait of the Egel, the terrible sin of the Egel Hazav, V'di Zahav. Let me read to you the Lashon of the Gemara in Masechta Brachos. The Gemara says the following. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, to explain V'di Zahav. What was Moshe Rabbeinu trying to do when he said V'di Zahav? Mashal li Adam echad shaylo ben. It's a metaphor for someone who has a son. What does he do for his son? Hirchito. He washes him, beautifies him, sends him to a spa, sends him to the Dead Sea, to Yom Melech, right? Visacho, usually we associate Sicha with the lady folk, but here, Sicha for his son. So he smells really good. Hechilo vishkeu, he stuffs, he feeds him well. Like here in Canada, they feed you well, right? Vitolo kiss al tavaro. He put, you can imagine this beautiful thing around his neck. I mean, this guy is really attractive, right? And then what does he do with his own son? Hoshivoso al pesach shel zonos. He puts him at the entryway of a house of ill repute. Ma yasa ben v'lo yechta. Is there any way possible that we can hope? We can hold out with hopes that he will not sin. You put him at a Pesach Beis Zonos. He smells good, he's attractive. So the question is obvious. Why is this Rabbi Chia bar Abba an explanation for these are? And the Mefarshim write that it's Sanigoria. This is Moshe Rabbeinu as a defense attorney on behalf of Klal Yisrael. What is he saying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you sent us into Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is beautiful, it's wonderful. And you don't expect us to sin? The Di Zahav, that glittering gold, is a direct result of 210 years of Golus. And therefore, how could you hold the people of Israel liable for that chet? So my Rebbe Rav Soloveitchik asked the following question. He says, okay, good, but let's understand the mashal per se. The Medrash of Rabbi Chia bar Abba is to explain what a loving, compassionate father does for his son. Why would a father do this for his son? Why would he take his wonderful son and send him into the lion's den, expose him to the most powerful, passionate temptation? That's not something you want to do for your son. So why is this indicative of a father-son relationship, which is supposed to be in the Nimshal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Bnei Yisrael? And to answer this question, the Rav asked another question. He said, if you take a look at the history of Galuyot, of exiles, you'll find that there's one peculiar pattern that repeats itself. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends Bnei Yisrael not to the lower echelon communities, not to the culturally lower stratum of society. On the contrary, the first Golus is Golus Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is the avant-garde of Chachma. In fact, Shlomo HaMelech, in many places, whenever he wants to use an example of Chachamim, of wisdom, of intellect, he speaks about Chachmei Mitzrayim, right? Chartumei Para. They had certain, shall we say, techniques that even today baffle the mind. We don't know exactly how they did it. They invented the Merkava, right? The Merkava, the chariot. They were the most powerful nation of the entire world. Their civilization was so advanced. And if you look at this pattern, it repeats itself over and over again. We were sent to Yavan. The Greeks were the great philosophers of their time. They were sent to Rome, the most powerful civilization in the entire world at the time. Why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu send us into those empires which are so advanced and so technologically superior to other nations? And the Rav said something unbelievable. He said, what the Jewish people have to learn when they go into these exiles is not to be jealous of their non-Jewish neighbors who share the same streets with them, the same society, the same schools. A Jew sometimes, chas v'sholem, looks over his shoulder, he looks to the right, looks to the left, he sees the goyim, and he says to himself, wow, I'm so impressed. You know, in America we have something called the MIT, right? We have Harvard, we have Yale, here I guess U of T, I don't know, whatever it is, right? You have the advanced intellectual societies, civilizations that glamorously look so attractive. And a Jew might, heaven forbid, be tempted to say, what do I have to offer? Okay, it's true that we can boast of many accomplishments. You know, if you take a look at Nobel Prize winners, you know, there's a proportion that's not commensurate at all to the percentage of Jews. But classically, if you look through civilized worlds, you know, we didn't write all the famous philosophy texts. I mean, Spinoza was a philosopher, but we could talk about that at a different time. But the philosophy text was written by the Greeks. You talk about the Roman Colosseum, and you talk about the gladiators and the sportsmen. Okay, we had a few Jews in sports. You know, there was Hank Aaron, there were a couple of Sandy Koufax. We had a couple of them here. Bobby Hull wasn't Jewish, was he? No. Okay, he was from Montreal, though, right? I'm sure not. So we had a couple, there were a couple of good pitchers and batters here and there. But, basically, we're not the strongest guys, and we look around and we see the goyim, and wow, we're very impressed. The neon lights. You know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says? I'm going to send you into these civilizations. You're going to live in those societies. You're going to live in the great Greek Empire and the Roman Empire and Paras and Modai. And you're going to see close up that there's nothing to be impressed upon. That all this is on a superficial level. They may be great advanced technologically inventions and techniques. And the Russian mathematicians in the theoretical world, and the MIT geniuses in practical engineering, and so forth and so on. It's all great and all impressive, but where are they morally? And the anti-Semitism of Golus, one exile after the other. The glorious golden age of Spain, and then of course the Jews are exiled from Spain. 75,000 Jews have to leave from Spain. And the Jews are subject to such torment and to pillaging and murder. These are the goyim that you're impressed with. Take a close look at them. Live amongst them. And realize that there's one fundamental difference between the Jewish nation and all the other nations. The Jewish nation are given an absolute moral code, divinely revealed. They are given a spiritual, inherent sensitivity on the moral sphere. It's true that as Jews get alienated from their people and from their heritage, they lose that to some extent. But I would say that even a Jew who has not been brought up with the proper education, nevertheless, he has that sensitivity. It's part of his structure, it's DNA, it's legacy. We are the Am Hashem. We are the Am HaTorah. And the Rav said the following. Listen carefully, because this is very profound. Moshe Rabbeinu lives, he's raised in the palace of Paro. And then the pasuk describes how he goes out to see his brethren. Vayetze Moshe liros bi'echav. And then the pasuk says, Vayar ish mitzri. The word ish, according to Chazal, whenever it's used in Scripture, means ish chashuv. Imagine, Moshe Rabbeinu leaves the confines of the palace, right? He's been insulated for so long in his life. A different day is how old he was when he left the palace, but he was very mature. And he beholds an ish mitzri. Again, I can just imagine, this mitzri probably was 6'3". He had all the gear on. He looked like, the most sophisticated guy. You put him on the front cover of some of the magazines. He was an ish mitzri. And then the pasuk says, Makeh ish ivri. Vayifen ko vacho, vayar ki ein ish, vayaches ha-mitzri, vayitmenen bacho. Notice, a second time the pasuk says mitzri, but there's one difference. In the first case, vayar ish mitzri. In the second case, it says Mitzri, it doesn't say Ish. And what happened in between the first Mitzri, which is the Ish Mitzri, and the second Mitzri, which omits the word Ish? Make Ish Ivri. Moshe Rabbeinu is impressed by this Ish Mitzri. He looks, wow, someone to be jealous of, someone to, praise. And then he sees the reality of it. Make Ish Mitzri. This man is not a man at all. He's a beast. He will destroy and devour anyone in his pathway, especially a Jew. Vayifen kol v'chol. And Moshe Rabbeinu takes a good look at this Ish Mitzri. Looks at him in the eyes. Looks at him this way. Looks at him that way. Tries to assess and evaluate him. Is there anything redeeming about this Mitzri? Vayar ki ein Ish. He's not an Ish at all. Moshe Rabbeinu revealed the truth that the Jewish people, unfortunately, tragically, have to reveal to themselves in every single golus, whatever exile they're meant to endure. And then, vayetminenu b'chol, he puts him down in the chol. This is pure chulin. Chol can be something that can become sacred. Vayetminenu b'chol. And my friends, the Rav did not speak about Germany at that particular shiur that he gave. But of course, it fits so perfectly. They can listen to the best Beethoven and Mozart. But at the end of the day, it's Vayar ki ein Ish. And this is the lesson that we, the people of Israel, have learned over and over, time and time again. In Shir HaShirim, it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, in the metaphor of Shir HaShirim, the dode knocks on the door of the Raya. And my Rebbe used to say that if you count how many times the dode is dofek al pischi li, you'll find 6 tfikot. And I hope all of you have read the Rav's essay, and specifically the section on the Sheish tfikot. Excuse me, the Rav sees in Shir HaShirim a metaphor especially for the establishment of the state of Israel. Just about a few minutes ago, we began Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Iyar is a month in which we appreciate what Hashem did for us in this particular period of time. We can't understand how it is that our generation, of all generations, merited this incredible experience. One of the 6 tfikot that the dode is knocking on the door of the Raya is the tfikah of the Shar of Eretz Yisrael. The gates of Eretz Yisrael have been opened. HaKadosh Baruch Hu beckons to his people to return to the land. This is one of our great challenges. On the one hand, as the Malbim says at the beginning of the 9th parak of Amos, we have to face the challenge in Golus of maintaining our separate, independent identity and complexion. And that's a great, awesome challenge. And we have to build, and we have to teach, and we have to do chesed in Chutz La'aretz. But on the other hand, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is knocking for the first time in a long, long, bitter history of exiles of Galiyot. Hashem has opened the doors of Eretz Yisrael to us. And the question is, how will we respond? The challenge, my friends, of creating a separate, independent, Klal Yisrael Dika culture, not to be ma'urav im hagoyim, b'chukoseim lo teilechu, that challenge perhaps is greater today than it ever was. Both in Chutz La'aretz, because of the beauty of the advanced cultures and civilizations that Jews find themselves inhabiting, living in, the equality that Jews kaviyachol are given in various galiyot across the face of the globe, but it's even perhaps a greater challenge in medinat Yisrael today. Yom Ha'atzmaut, the Independence Day, is both a celebration, a thanksgiving, and a challenge. And the great challenge of Yom Ha'atzmaut is, can we build independence? Can we create a society that's predicated on the immortal and eternal, divine laws of morality. Ultimately, we want to create a Kiddush Hashem. If we are able to build a society, and this is a great challenge, and we're facing tremendous difficulties, we haven't yet solved all the problems, but Baruch Hashem, we are working to create a society, and each and every one of us here, and beyond this neighborhood, what do they call this neighborhood? The South? I don't know. Bathurst, Lawrence. That's just a Jewish way of calling it. It must have a technical name. Okay. We have, each and every one of us, something to contribute. To strengthen the land of Israel, to strengthen the people, to strengthen the society, and make it a Jewish independent society that reflects something of Am Hashem, of Kiddush Hashem, of love of Hashem, love of our fellow man, of Avos Yisrael. So I want to end this part of my shir with a bracha, a tefillah to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He should give us the wisdom and the insight to continue the process of Ischalta the Geula, to bring the Geula to the next level, to take the challenges and face them, to contribute, to create that wonderful society that is appropriate, that reflects the Am Hashem. And this we should see increasing daily, by every day, by every minute, until we see, Mirz Hashem, the ultimate Geula b'meher v'yameinu. Amen.